Congratulations, you made the decisions to buy a house, or maybe you're just stressing out like, oh my goodness, how much is it gonna cost me to buy a house? Can I even afford buying a house? And what we're gonna cover today is several things. One, we're gonna help you understand the budget. How much does it actually cost? Two, we're gonna help you understand how you can lower your costs through good negotiation tactics and working with other things. And then last of all, when will you find out what you're actually gonna pay? Because if you're reading on the internet, you're probably finding things like, well, maybe it's 1.5%, maybe it's 10%. The fact is it varies a lot by state. In Texas, this is what we're gonna be covering in Texas here, is what do we see happening at the closing table and what are buyers actually coughing up in cash to cover all sorts of things like taxes, insurance, loan payments, points, title, all that kind of stuff, right? So stay tuned as we dive in. All right, so let's talk about budget and understanding what goes into the budget. Why are buying costs so high, potentially? What goes into that transaction, right? So as a whole, we see on average, a buyer will bring between 2 to 6% cash at closing. That means if you're buying a $100,000 home, you're bringing $2,000 to $6,000 to purchase that home, right? Now, that'll vary a number on a few things. It depends on the loan and depends on what you're qualified for. Let's dive into the details here. So origination charges. These are typically charges by your lender to help you underwrite the loan, to help you get qualified for this, or maybe points, right? So on average, we see between $800 to $3,500 in fees, and then points on top of that. A point is simply 1% of the loan amount, not the purchase price, but the loan amount that you're borrowing on that property, right? And that can be used to help you reduce interest rates potentially. If you're buying an investment property, you might have to pay a point or two to get that property under contract as well. So it depends there. We can talk more with your lender to kind of understand what the costs are on those. Services borrowers did not shop for. These are things that the lender assigned, things like appraisal, things like, services to record the mortgage, all that kind of stuff that will be on the closing statement as well. And on average, we see those between $1,800 to $3,000 in a transaction at the closing table, right? Then there's services borrowers did shop for. This is typically your title fees that kind of fall into play here. And usually your buying agent's gonna guide you on which title company to use. But these are things like recording the deed, the courier fees, if you're doing a mobile notary or something like that, all those little fees that fall under there would appear under this section here. Typically we see between $500 to $1,500 on a transaction. And then there is an optional piece here for title insurance. Now in Texas, it's pretty customary for a seller to pay that title insurance. So it's most likely not gonna fall on you as the buyer, but you can negotiate that in too. Maybe you're negotiating for a lower dollar and you wanna throw something in to kind of sweeten the deal there. That can be as well. And title insurance is typically between about 0.7% to 0.9% of a transaction cost, the total purchase price. Now, the filing fee is very cheap. It's $141. This is what gets it filed and recorded in the deed of record there. And then prepaids and loan amount with insurance. So the prepaid section can vary a lot depending on the loan amount that you have and the insurance that you have. Insurance can vary a lot based on location. If you're near the coast in Houston, you're gonna have a higher insurance cost than if you're further west and inland, right? And same with the loan amount. If you have a loan amount that's high, your interest here on that loan amount, which is prepaid on that first month, may go up a few $100 more there, right? Just to give you an idea, I closed on a few rental properties this year that were, all of them were, I think, less than $230,000, $240,000, right? I spent between $2,300 to $4,300 on each of those houses in prepaids. That gives you a ballpark. Now, you have maybe a little bit higher interest rates on some of those too, or the insurance is different, so keep that in mind, but it gives you a ballpark number to play with there. Initial escrow, this will vary again on taxes and your insurance. So escrow may be a requirement of your lender, and that is where basically when you pay your mortgage, you're not only paying the principal and the interest, but you're also paying the taxes and the insurance, which are escrowed and the bank will pay those for you on an annual basis. So they're broken down basically over 12 months into payments, but when you buy, you have to put money in the escrow account so that the mortgage company has the money at the time those bills are due, right? And so they'll break those down and add those in, and you'll pay those in advance at closing, right? Now in these, I paid on those same houses we're talking about there between $3,500 or so to $4,500. Actually, I think one of the houses was around $5,000, right? On the houses that I purchased here in Houston. Again, this is gonna vary a lot on property taxes. You're gonna see some houses have property taxes at $5,000 and some have taxes closer to $20,000. So understanding the cost of taxes is gonna be probably the biggest driver on this number as your closing cost is there. Now, other fees, this is typically HOA fees. It's pretty customary for a buyer to offer about $200 to $500 in HOA fees, and the seller will pick up a lot of those other costs. Now, I know you might be thinking like, wow, this is a lot of money to bring to the table. The seller is usually paying between 6 to 10% on that closing as well, not the 2 to 6% that you are paying as the buyer. All right, so let's talk about two really important things here to finish this off. One, how can you lower your cost as a buyer, right? One is shopping a mortgage provider. And I made another video about that. I'll put a link in below here, but shop that APR percentage. It's really important to understand when you're doing that. Secondly, when you're offering the contract, there's a space in the TREC contract, the Texas 1 to 4 family contract, where you can ask for seller concessions. That is points essentially that they would pay down, or money they would pay down towards your closing costs to help you bring less closing money to the table. This is huge. You can ask for money in there and give them maybe a higher asking price even, and that helps you ultimately bring a much lower cost to you at the closing table, right? And then last of all, when will I know my cost? Because I'm still giving you big ranges, even though you've probably seen some pretty big ranges as you're looking online and stuff, but you can get more accurate information in the first step of getting started. When you get a pre-application or a pre-approval letter from your lender, they can also give you an estimate on closing costs, and they're gonna guess a few things like the taxes of the property you're gonna buy. They're gonna guess a few things like insurance, so on and so forth, but they're seeing a lot of transactions and they can give you a ballpark estimate. Don't shop your mortgage lender off that, because those are very dirty, rough numbers. Shop your mortgage lender off the fees they have and the percentages, but this will give you a great estimate to get started. As we go on, we write the contract. During the option period, it's a great time to kind of firm up what are your costs for insurance, firm up what are your costs for all taxes, etc., and we can give you a more accurate number. And then 3 days before the close, the lender will provide you a more detailed, accurate closing estimate that they're going to work back and forth with the title company to make sure that you have exactly all the fees and breakdowns of what you're going to have at closing. So hope that helps. Hope to see you at the closing table. If you have any questions whatsoever on how to estimate a budget for buying, reach out to us on our website, give us a call. We'll be happy to help you.